Which rule was created because of something you did? My friends and I, in high school, had bought a toaster at a nearby yard sale and brought it in. We set up shop in the downstairs locker corridor, having purchased a bag of sliced bread. For a brief time we were the kings of toast, providing toast to all who desired. People could bring their own condiments. Anyways, I don't know what the rule was verbatim, but soon after we weren't allowed to plug in electronic cooking devices in the hallways. Our reign had ended. When I was in middle school, rubber bands were banned because I bought a big bag of 100-200 of them and gave them out to other kids. Sold them for like a quarter. Whatever. People ended up having rubber band wars in the hallways and classrooms, flinging them at teachers and that. One day the principal announced over the PA system, "I don't know where everyone's getting these rubber bands from, but it needs to stop." Everyone in class simultaneously turned to look at me. The profit margins of your operation sound glorious. A few years ago at a doctor's office I went into the bathroom just for some privacy to make a phone call. I kinda just mindlessly leaned against the sink, and it fell. Like came undone from the wall and crashed to the ground. No writing on the manager's notes, because my co-worker and I kept making spelling and grammar corrections to our manager's notes on the notice board at work. No melee attacks at this laser tag establishment. Most of these are from kids and young adults so far. Mine happened in my 40s. No tall structures in your garden plot. That rule was added to our community garden regulations after I built a 12-foot high, 16 feet on a side, framework for hanging tomatoes. This was in a 20x20 plot. They first tried to make me take it down by invoking the rule about shading other garden plots, but I pointed out that I had a ridge plot near a tree. My shade never hit another garden. They then tried to get me on the no permanent structure rule, but my wood on dirt foundation is the legal definition of impermanent in our local building codes. They gave up and let me have my wooden Parthenon of tomatoes, but they changed the rules so that nobody else could build one. You should get a ham radio license and make a really big ham antenna with lattice work and let tomatoes grow on it. They are not allowed to regulate ham antennas because they are under FCC regulation. No Aldi in the Atherstone region in the UK is allowed to have an employee of the month anymore because of me. When you win it, you get a YouAcute 20 free shop which gets put through as store expenses. Mine flagged up at head office when they were going through the expensed receipts. I spent it on a bottle of vodka, some Sabacha Santoku knives, tissues and painkillers. I bought them because I needed them all at the time. It was only when my manager took me to one side and asked if everything was okay that I realized that I had made a suicide kit. And now no one else will ever get YouAcute 20 for being awesome. Thanks to me. All for YouAcute 20? Man. Aldi is cheap. In 5th grade I got yo-yos banned from my elementary school because I tried to do a sweet trick. But I forgot to put my damn finger through the loop. So I'm acting all cocky like only a 10-year-old can. Attempt aforementioned sweet trick, only to see my fireball go flying across the classroom and hit my teacher right in the forehead. Oops. Returning back to college for homecoming, me and 8 other guys went to a Best Western's quiet bar in the morning before the football game for some hangover, helping Bloody Marys and breakfast. When we arrived we found out they serve bottomless mimosas. Wrong move. We drank the entire rest of their stash in one sitting, 25 plus bottles, and paid $4.99 a piece. We decided this would be a great way to start the following day as well. When we arrived, however, we were informed that because of our antics there will be rule of a maximum of 3 mimosas per person instated starting that moment. We went back the following year. Still had the rule. Edit. Nerf guns were banned at the software company where I worked. I had brought in some guns and about a week later I went on vacation for a few days. I would love to know what happened while I was gone. Lab scientists at Pfizer now officially cannot wear Heelys in the chemistry labs. I used to put a straw on the butter dispenser in movie theaters and stick the other end in the bottom of my popcorn so the whole bag would be buttered. Taught my friends how to do it. They taught their friends. Then one day, the theater put a sign up that forbade anyone from putting foreign objects on the butter dispenser. It also said that if you wanted butter throughout your whole bag that you should ask the employee to do it. I am oddly proud of that little sign. Knowing that I inadvertently started something that grew to such a level that a sign was even necessary. Your one mistake was telling other people. No speeding tickets on the expense report. Only one car per parking space in the high school parking lot. Because that needed to be stated. My school had this rule. When my father taught me how to drive a motorcycle, they made it simply because we started parking 2 or 3 to a space. They didn't like that we did it for some reason and told us only 1 to a space. So we started parking on the school sidewalks. They eventually painted an area for us to park our bikes specifically. This all came after one idiot drove into a friend's bike and claimed he couldn't see it in the space until he was already driving into it. Literally, you would have to be blind to not see it in time and stop. Went to an uptight boarding school in England. They had a rule against growing beards because they were scruffy. Grew a pretty neat beard. And refused to shave it off. Eventually got a load of teachers on my side. And after a beating with the head, I legalized the beard. Proudest moment of my school career. No underwear. No service. My sisters and I were big fans of being naked when we were kids. We're Swedish. It got to the point where my mom had to put her foot down. And instituted the rule that I, and the rest, had to minimum be wearing underwear to be served breakfast, lunch or dinner. Might be a coincidence, but the Skype update that added a word limit to messages came out the day after I used copy paste to send my friend somewhere in the realm of 12 billion smileys at once. Edit. My 12 billion figure is way off. Valiant Serpent's example got to that number is just a few steps. I must have copy pasted at least 50 times. Also, don't we share a fetish? 12 billion. S is 24 billion bytes. Or 24 gigs. That's a hell of a message. At boarding school, we technically weren't allowed to use the phones. But staff would get lazy and tell us to call the administrative office and ask if so and so was sick. Routine stuff like that. It was also how we all got in trouble for smoking and whatever. Because staff in classrooms would call the office and people would be dispatched to whatever area it looked like kids were hiding in and skipping class. One day I mapped out all the extensions on the system, Nortel Meridian, and gave instructions to about a dozen people about how to forward, or park, a phone to the classroom next door. We created a daisy chain that the system hadn't anticipated. And loop the chain back to the administrative office. The system didn't have an error exception for that. And it crashed completely for at least an hour. When the system was finally up and running again, one of the administrators was so angry. He told me he would staple me upside down to the wall. After that, they tried really hard to enforce the rule about kids touching the phones. 18-year-old students are no longer allowed to sign themselves out of school at the high school I graduated from. I had about one sick day a week after I turned 18 in October of my senior year. Edit. They couldn't force you to stay. But you were marked as absent and your work was considered incomplete for the classes you missed. When I called myself in, it became an excused absence. They don't allow that anymore. A camp at Flagstaff Lake in the great state of Maine has an awesomely long and straight dock about 6 feet above the water line with a 10x 10 feet floating dock at the end of it. One year I was jumping my BMX off the end making some sweet splashes. Next year 2 big signs say no bikes on dock. I got blocking shots banned in my last year of biddy basketball. I was a 6 feet 1 12-year-old and 6 inches taller than the next tallest kid in the league and averaged 6 blocks a game before they made the rule. That's messed up. How is that your fault that you used your height to your advantage and other kids, parents, are pissed? These are probably the same idiots that give everyone a participation trophy. I was hired at a historic site and the salary was really good for the time. We had a paid formation of 75 hours to read stuff and practice the activities we would do on a regular basis. So I'm here, minding my own business. And after the formation, I receive my schedule for the next 2 weeks. 9 hours total. I go see the boss and ask her if it's going to be like this all the time, and she told me they never offered any guarantee of how many hours they would offer and that they vary greatly. Meanwhile, I landed a job elsewhere in another historical site where the salary was not as interesting, but where I was assured 32 hours a week. So, after a total of 3 hours worked at this job and a 75 hours long paid formation, I quit and moved to the other site. Because of me, or of them. Your choice. They do not pay the full salary during the formation. Now, are you French? If so, formation equals training. And interesting is more like attractive. At least in this context. A fence had to be built to prevent roof access on the art building because of my performance art. Got an A. At least. No horse blankets at the laundromat. Close the external school gates so that students don't run out and get hit by incoming traffic. Reason: I ran out to collect a stray ball and got hit. I managed to do some ninja Hawaii 5-0 shti and jump atop the bonnet, so managed to come off somewhat unscathed. In like the 80s or 90s, my friend's dad was at my local Six Flags. He was riding the sky buckets across the park. He thought it would be funny to reach out and grab the bucket coming the opposite direction. So he did, resulting in them shutting down the ride for the day and banning him for life. Now the sky buckets have bars on them preventing you from leaning out of the bucket. In elementary school, 3rd grade, I went on a field trip. During the trip, we stopped at a Cici's Pizza. I sat with my friends, and remembering a movie I'd seen, I grabbed around 10 straws. When I sat down, I would stick each straw into the other, pinch one end so it fits, and as I did this, I ended up with this monstrous straw. Other kids saw and joined in. The restaurant asked us to leave because one kid knocked over his drink doing it. My school made a rule after that students are no longer allowed to get their own straws in restaurants after that. Do not inhale E. coli. I turned my brain off for 2 seconds during AP Bio Lab and I wondered what it smelled like. Well, I got put in quarantine for a week. But I didn't get sick. Oh. And don't bother sniffing E. coli. It smells like death and disease. It. Oh, and I just remembered that it was a amoxicillin resistant strand that we were breeding. I am so lucky nothing happened. I'm pretty sure I was responsible for a hotel banning children. I've already posted this story once, so I'll go and dig that up and copy it in here. Edit. Scratch that. I can't get that far back in my history. Okay. I'll try typing it up again. When I was younger, read 4 or 5, I went on a family holiday to a hotel in Tenerife. One day, at the pool, I decided I needed the toilet. The piss gland was full. Whatever expression you want to use. Now, I was old enough to know that pissing in the pool was not cool. But I couldn't work out where the toilet was. So me, being an idiot, decided it would be a great idea to drop my swimming trunks and run, stark naked, through the hotel reception, pissing as I did so. The following year, the hotel had changed to adults only. Got tipsy at a wedding, which was held at a country club. I was wearing an enormous purple gown, purple shoes, and a purple hat. I stumbled a little down the stairs, then borrowed a golf cart, backed over a fence, died laughing, and floored it when they came after me. My friend, the groom, told me the country club now has a rule that says golf carts must be secured when not in use. Whatever that means. I'm the reason you can't drink beer in class at my alma mater. I had a prof that dropped a grade for every class you missed. I missed 5 classes and got an F, meaning I had to take it over. I aced every test and knew the material. The next year, I took the class again and showed up every day with nothing but a small cooler full of beer. I would sit in the front and loudly crack open cans of beer and drink them. The prof couldn't do anything because there was nothing in the handbook to prevent it. The next year, there was. I caused a rewording in the school's code of conduct handbook. In 7th grade I sold candy. Very effectively on the DL. And went for a long time without being caught. When I was caught I couldn't be penalized because the only student money related rules prevented gambling or hustling of some sort. Initially my principal, a total twat, was going to try to give me in-school suspension. I, knowing I was untouchable, happily told her ass I was in the clear. It was sort of a big deal amongst the office staff and admins. Going to other offices and sharing the story and whatnot. Feeling victorious and badass. I continued to sell. I made such good 7th grade money, eventually being reprimanded for disobeying the principal. Unfortunately business closed. The following year, a new rule was in the book, specifically stating that students are not to sell or trade items of value for other goods. Felt so bored reading that. So I have this really stupid Bio 100 class that I'm only taking for GE credit. We have to write these hypotheses every so often. It's a joke. Like honestly. We were doing this in elementary school. The teacher gives us a picture and explains what some strange natural phenomena is and our job is to guess why. So here's what I did. Every time I would make some outrageous relation between radioactive plutonium isotopes in the scenario at hand. Hummingbird on a flower? Attracted to the trace levels of plutonium in that one flower. Some trees planted at the same time grow differently? Plutonium in the soil. Since our answers were just hypotheses and I did my answers in the right format. They weren't wrong per se. But eventually the teacher heard about it from the TAs who were still giving me points for the assignment. Our professor brought it up in lecture. But didn't mention me by name. Now our answers have to be plausible and everyone refers to me as the plutonium guy. TL. Doctor got bored in a stupid GE class. Now I'm the plutonium guy. I used to work at this place that had 4 bars on one property. One of the bars was a coffee shop during the day. And had the distinction of being the only place in town where you could get liquor at 7 AM. Me and my co-workers got to be pretty regular morning drunks. We'd shut down the bar and get out around 3 AM or 4 AM. Head to somebody's house and drink for a while. And then head to the bar coffee shop at 7 AM. One morning we got a little drunker than usual and I guess we made a bit of a scene. At the next staff meeting a new rule was announced. No employees may drink on premises until the afternoon. Not sure if this counts, but where I'm from east of Phoenix there's an iconic light blue building that overlooks a community college. I think it started out as a bank and got sold to some other bank. I think it's a B of A now. Well, they used to have a set of fountains out front of the building facing an intersection with statues and cascading water. That is until I poured 40 gallons of dish soap into it and flooded the intersection with bubbles. I didn't know it was going to react so violently, but after that they turned off the water. That was close to 20 years ago and I don't know if they ever turned the water back on. Our IMCA used to have sleepovers for kids. I broke my leg and my dad tried to sue. Because they told my sister to just take him home. They don't have sleepovers anymore. Damn it, Dad. Back when I was fairly young I may have caused chalk to be banned from a Bruster's in my hometown. The little ice cream shop had only outdoor seating and kids were allowed to draw on the concrete with the chalk Bruster's provided. One time my family went and it was a busy night. And there were loads of other kids to draw on the ground with. Someone had the bright idea to trace an outline on the ground of someone and everyone would color it in together. I couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 and I felt compelled to make the chalk outline a man. So I drew a big old pecker on the guy. Chalk was immediately discontinued and a drive-through was built over the drawing space within the next few months. On Coke Music way back in the day they had an online game where you could go to different cities and listen to and play songs you could create on a music making app. Think Habbo Hotel but Coke branded. I made an account called CokeAdmin 1234 or something. And with another friend of mine would lure people into our room trying to initiate cyber sex. He would bring them in. Then the CokeAdmin would come in and we'd try to extort items from them in order to let them off the hook for engaging in cybering. It worked a couple times and then there started to be a notice that would come up during loading that says Coke personnel will never attempt to contact you in the game. I'm sure other people were taking advantage of that as well, but I'd like to think we were instrumental in having that rule created.